Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is I don't know. You're what's an appropriate bloody thing that you can be this week, Tom? What do you want to be? What do you want to be in the Flesh Eater Courts? What's your dream? That's too much time to think.
I am your own little terrorgeist.
No, see, you just got demoted. Immediately now you're a serf. It took you too long. That's it. You're a ghoul. You're just a ghoul. If you want
at least I'm not a blister kid.
That's true. You've got to jump up quick. When the opportunity for nobility arises, Tom, you got to immediately jump on that. You can't sit around and wait. Okay? But don't worry, one day your prince will come, Tom, I'm sure. So it's going to be fine. As I sort of implied, we are returning to the Flesh Eater Courts this week. I am still on the road, so I was back for like a day, and then now I'm traveling again. I love traveling this much, right? As I'm trying to finish up my last thing for Adepticon. It's super fun. So, but we're gonna finish out our Flesh Eater Courts discussion. I was kind of expecting that to be the only thing, and then all of a sudden, hey, I didn't know we were going to get this much stuff for Gamma. Like last year, they did some stuff for Gamma, right? There was some stuff. There was like a couple boxes. It was like, oh, look, here's a Speed Freaks box or something or whatever. I don't even remember what it was, but that was kind of the thing, right? And then this year, they were like, nope, hold my beer. Here is all of the stuff. Okay, so let's get into the news because there's actually a lot. There's a lot.
Rumor engine?
Sure, I don't have the picture. It's a weird bug tail thing.
Yeah, it's like those silverfish that you see.
Yes, it's gross. Hate it.
Yeah,
freaks me out. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't have it either. So whatever.
It's fine. It
doesn't
a weird
matter.
Bug tail.
Yeah,
and I don't like it. And frankly, it makes me uncomfortable. Not gonna lie. I'll be frank with everybody. It grosses me out. Weird things like that gross me out. Like, because I can just picture like not seeing that thing, and it just kind of like latches onto you somehow, and I'm just like, ugh, icky. I don't like weird little insect things. Ugh, gross.
Funny story. We played a D&D campaign one time, and I described these like brain sucker things that were controlling people.
Oh god!
And like,
no, just stop. I don't even want to hear about it.
And Vince like lost it. Like he was like, I can't do it, and he just walked out. And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I literally left in the middle of the game. I was like, I can't handle this description, Tom. Like, and it's funny too where the line is, right? Because like the horrible things we've encountered in our role playing games over the years, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. That's death and murder and just horrible, macabre scenes of suffering and terror, and it washes over like so many waves on the sand, right? But then you described this like bug monster, and I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm leaving. I literally left the room. I was like, I'm not participating in this adventure. We're not doing this.
Yes, indeed. So other news that's more significant and aren't bugs. How about that?
Sure, there we go. Let's move on to non-bug things. Yeah, somebody said it in the comments, but I'll say it here. Like, my utter nightmare is that that's like a Slanesh model in some way, right? And I'm like, oh no.
I have to pay this.
No, I don't. I don't. Yeah, that is where you're wrong. There's plenty of other models in the sea, my friend. I mean, like, that is not getting bought. That is not getting painted. That is not getting played. It could be like it could be a 60-point model that has a speed of 24, 72 wounds, a 2-up, rerolling 1 saves, has 12 attacks that hits on 2s and 2s, rerolling 1s, with -7 rend for D100 damage, and I would be like, nope.
Vince is like all kinds of nope.
Hard pass. That's that. Like I take this very seriously. It's not getting played.
I don't even know how to respond to you. I'd be like, give me 10.
Nope. I got my rules. Got my rules.
Indeed you do. I mean, I don't know how we like bury the lead on this. Like, we got to talk about Warcry. Because sure. Warcry
I do have photos of this, and I think I can share it. So I'm gonna
try.
If
you can, I can pull it up.
Let's give it a shot here. We'll see what we can do. Okay. All right. I don't know if I have the core box or just like a lot of the photos of the dudes. So I'll just kind of I'll bring it up and we'll see how this works.
How about this? Let me do it.
Okay, you do it. That's fine. Go ahead.
And the reason why I say I do, and it's in because I'm pulling up AOS Shorts article. It's in pretty format, so I don't have to do anything. I can just click through them.
Hey, there you go. Thanks, Dan. Hot pick, tip of the week. Why would you not be checking out Dan with AOS Shorts? He does a lot of hard work compiling all this stuff. There you go.
Yes, he does. And wonderful format. Coming summer 2019, gather your warband. So this is coming. Let's go this way. Hold on. Still messing this up.
Yeah.
So the
he
box.
made it so easy for you, and you're still screwing it up.
Exactly. So here's the box. What did we learn? We learned that we had a sweet trailer. We saw some images that we've seen before of like these flying demon things, most likely furies. Furies.
Different.
Watch out.
Thing, different thing.
Yeah. Watch out. And then if you look around, there's some other stuff. Some interesting art. We've went through a lot of this art before, but more importantly, we have models now.
Yep, we actually get to see the models. Well, let's talk about the framing device of what's going on here, right? And what we can infer from what we've seen. Like you could move to that first model picture. That's a good picture to go to. Yeah, because this guy looks like a Chaos Dwarf.
It's been confirmed, by the way. This is a Chaos Dwarf.
I understand.
Like, how do I want to say this? I don't want to say it's been confirmed. The GW said, boy, that really does look like a Chaos Dwarf, doesn't it? Huh.
Oh, wink.
Wink. Yeah, exactly.
But it was in a Facebook response, which, yes, we should never take to be the absolute official final word. But yes.
Right. But it is a Chaos Dwarf. I mean, we're not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Right. Exactly. So okay, so we've got.
Hold on. I'm gonna rewind real quick. Yeah. Okay, well let's do the premise. So the premise is, Chaos Warbands are gathering around Varenspire.
That's right.
That's what we've been sold in the preview. Let me come out at the outset and say that the rumor that we received like a couple weeks ago was dead wrong.
That's right.
It's all of it. Like all of the Gladiator Stormcast starter box, all of the everything. All of that was wrong according to what we know right now.
Yep. According to
because we've only been shown chaos stuff and yeah.
As it stands right now, yes, the high level that I think we should talk about is that from what we've seen of this starter box, and we don't know of any of the supporting paraphernalia that'll clearly come with this, right? Or be released around the same time. But everything about this is it's chaos on chaos. We got some hot chaos on chaos action.
And none of it in pre-established factions.
That's right. So this is all like, it's somebody, I mean, like this has been said 100 times. And obviously it applies well. This feels very much not like Kill Team for AOS, but like Necromunda for AOS, right? Where you have these sort of like kind of like other things, but they're their own complete new models and their own complete new groups.
It's a great way to explore lore and explore like the corners of the universe without having to make full armies of things.
Right, exactly. And so, like it has this very discrete setting, like in Necromunda, it's the Hive worlds, right? The lower levels of the Hive worlds. Here, it's the Varenspire, right? And so you have these like Chaos Warbands, like you're probably going to scroll over to where like the images of like the 6 factions or whatever they're there. That's clearly what they are. The 6 faction, like
I'm looking for it.
Items.
Let's go back. I think it was back. Hold on. So if we go to the end and go this way, we have 6 symbols. And in the video, the central 2 symbols like bounce and come forward, and then you cut to this screen. And you have this skull. Oops. And it's like a little grate. And that's what they are, these two symbols. These are probably 6 factions initially that we'll see. I want to talk about this later. I'm not going to talk about this right now, but I want to cut back to the symbol because this symbol is not actually in this lineup.
Correct.
And so I think it's worth talking about. And so we have the Red Tide. This is Korn's deep sea strike team. And Scuba Steve's in that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny too because I saw, we were chatting earlier, we were in a chat and I saw you say Scuba Corn or whatever, and I was going to make the same joke tonight that it's like the Chaos Scuba team because look, here's my hot take, okay? Like I'm just going to get this out right now. I like maybe 2 models in this whole thing. I just these models could not fall more flat for me. I looked at these and I was like, nope. I don't like any of these.
Agreed. I agree with you completely. There was just nothing in any of the lines.
Now, I'm not going to say nothing. There's actually a couple things in here that I love a lot. But everything in this set is like a 1 or a 10 for me. Right? Like there's no middle ground. And the things I really like are like the monster stuff, the weird little
bird things,
the Ichthyosaurus bird lizards or whatever. I thought looked pretty sweet. Those dudes are cool looking. I like the new Furies or whatever, Harpies or Furies or whatever they're meant to be. I think those dudes look pretty cool. What
were your thoughts on the Dark Oath?
I don't like the Scuba team. There's 1 or 2 of the barbarians that are okay.
There's Scuba Steve. For those of you guys that are wondering, Scuba Steve.
Sure. Scuba Steve, yeah. I appreciate that we're getting buff shirtless dudes. I'm thrilled about that. We can never have enough buff shirtless dudes. But a lot of them just have really weird accoutrement on them. And just really weird poses and stuff like that.
I was saying, do you know what these models scream to me? Is that they're not adjustable at all. They're monopose.
Sure, but I mean that's not unusual for things like.
Well, hold on. But what that says to me though is that we and I'll get to this. They said that there are elements from Kill Team and elements from Shadespire that they brought in. I'm wondering if one of the elements from Shadespire that they ported in were fixed warbands.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know. Who knows what this is all going to be? And I don't want to prejudge it. This has sparked a lot of strong reaction from people.
Both ways, yeah. A lot of people wrote it off as basically because if it's all chaos, I'm not interested. And in fact, I've been watching our comments and I've seen a lot of people say that. And the reality is that I had the same initial reaction, but I have some sneaking conspiracy theories coming up here, and we'll talk about.
That's fine. I mean, if I had to give just to try to, because I don't want to spark any crazy reactions, because that's not really. I don't think this is,
And by the way, my favorite model.
That guy's kind of cool. I like that dude with his dog. I do like the dog.
All
the animals are cool.
No, that's a baby manticore. It's the same pose. It's the same pose as the manticore, and that's what it is.
He's a dog. All
it's a baby
animals
manticore.
Are dogs. Okay, you know this.
No,
you know this.
It's a baby manticore.
All animals are dogs when they're accompanying somebody.
Did you like the spear guy?
Yeah, this is the dude I actually like. But again, I hate his stupid weapon in his left hand. Their bone teeth weapons are just a bit
over the top. How about this guy's spiked baseball bat?
Scuba team, I am completely against.
This guy looks like he could be on a lacrosse team. This is what this is. This was a defunct. I apologize to the sculptor who really loves this model, whoever designed this. But it feels like these were designed for Blood Bowl. And what happened is they were Blood Bowl's football, American football, it's not lacrosse. And they're
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't know what you mean by lacrosse. Maybe rugby or something. I don't know.
Rugby. Lacrosse uses the sticks, right? They hit the ball.
I mean, yeah, they have little sticks that they throw balls around. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, okay.
Or no, what was the cricket? That's a cricket bat. There we go. That's what
God.
that's the sport. That's the
Wow,
non-American sport I was looking for.
You know what? Stay in your lane, Tom. Stay in your lane. Okay, that's my advice.
I'm not drunk.
All right, now let me get this out. Okay, I want to get this out. All right, one. I'm gonna rapid fire points here. Okay, one. The original Mordheim did not use the armies that were in Warhammer either.
Absolutely.
Now,
I agree completely.
You could certainly use some of the models could be repurposed, right? Like you could use some of the Skaven dudes to make your Skaven.
Well, the main box came with like the Free Company and the Skaven, the Eshin ninjas. I still have those.
There was some alignment with things like the Sisters of Sigmar had no parallel. You could certainly use some of the Empire Free Company people to then repurpose them and stuff like that. Like that's all fine. I'm not arguing that you couldn't somehow use the kits. I'm just saying they weren't direct translations of the armies. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying. Yep. All right. So I'm not making a kit alignment. That's number one. Number two, I actually really like the idea of this thing. Like, despite what I've said about not really loving the models, and to be honest, from what I've seen, having like more or less no interest in playing this. Okay, from what I've seen so far, which by the way is not a value judgment on whether or not I think it's a good product. There is a difference there. I think that Idneth Deepkin looks stupid, and I don't like them at all. But I am very happy they exist. I think they're a sweet army that a lot of people love, and I like the way they play. There's a difference between my personal tastes and something being good for the game or the community or for everybody else, right? So, like, I think, like, narratively, I think this is a super cool idea to explore, like... Sorry, I'm just laughing at Relian because he's playing IDK right now. So the narratively, I think this is going to be a cool idea to explore. Like, I love this idea of like, what are the Chaos people doing? They're all getting together and like having a punch up at the Varanspire to ascend to greatness. Like, that sounds super cool. And if they release some other interesting, you know, Warband, like if one Warband comes out that like really catches my eye, because you know there are 6, these are only 2. We know there's 6 at least because we saw 6 symbols.
There's more. There's more. The initial launch will be 6.
Yeah. We'll get to all that. Like, I'm gonna be, I'll get that. Like, none of these models inspire me enough to go, okay, I need to check this out. I don't care that it's all chaos at the launch. We'll talk about future arcs. I'm saying what I see right now doesn't interest me, but I love the concept. And I love the idea of exploring, right? Like, of exploring more cool corners of the realms like this. One of the things I've always, like, really had a giant question mark in my head about was, like, what the hell are all these chaos people doing? Right? Like, they're so opaque.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see, like, the human perspective. I want the human perspective. What are the humans doing? Humans are doing what humans do. Humans are what humans are doing what humans do. No. What, like, in order? What are humans doing? They're doing what humans do in society. You know what humans do. We build cities and we trade, we get drunk, and we, like, you know, sit on walls and defend against whatever, blah, 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 blah. Every fantasy trope ever. Okay, like, I'm not opposed to explore. I'd love to see cool, you know, the defenders of the realm, because we've talked about that before. But like, what chaos is doing is like super alien to me, right? And like, I think that exploring that corner of the universe and like showing how they get together and fight and actually having like narrative explore that's super cool. So I love the idea of this fight at the Varanspire and being able to do these cool, kind of unique warbands, because it does make sense that these chaos gods, being, you know, chaos, wouldn't be exactly hegemonic. That there would be people like Corn, like Scuba Team Corn over here, that would be down in like Sea Lab in there from Pod 6. That's all. That's number one. And, you know, they've got their own little weird habits. That dude is sweet. These are the guys I love. These like Furies. These dudes look so cool. Like, those dudes look awesome. So,
they're not bad.
No, they're cool. So, like, just you know, like, more exploration of this is good. Just because I'm not interested in it right now, But like this could be a warband away from totally selling me, right? Because if they release some dope warband that I'm all about and has models that blow me away, I'm gonna be like, all right, never mind, I take it all back. I guess I'm playing this game now. Yeah. Okay, now talk about your conspiracy theory for the future of this game. We'll come back to other stuff later. I want you to try out this idea.
We have lots of death. So like I want to go back to this image. And so this is the factions that we are being told at launch, and you can see like elements of chaos throughout this, like very beastman-y, very like bird-esque. Very like Flayer-esque, like Slaanesh. If you look at the despoilers, like the Beastmen despoiler symbol for Slaanesh, like the Slaanesh battalion, they have like this flayed like face, very similar to this. And so like I can see where a lot of this is coming from, like in the aesthetics of chaos. And so like I see all that and go, yeah, that makes sense. And when you go here, what pops out is this symbol on a red banner. That is that's the 8-pointed star. You know, it's functionally that's what's being created here with the 3 and 3, and then this right here, 8-pointed star with the skull in the middle. And I got to looking at this and realizing like this is not a faction symbol. And when I went to the main box, let me jump back up here. I noticed that it was actually in the bottom left corner, and so it says a starter set for skirmish combat in the mortal realms. Interesting. And I got to thinking about that symbol, and I the other thing I thought about was how like garishly red this border is.
Sure.
And I was like, that's ugly. And then in looking at that, and then looking at all these images, I realized that the design reminded me of the design that you see in a number of other skirmish games, like on the market, where what they do is like the main factions, they mark by color code, by symbols and by color coding.
Yep.
And it started me down this rabbit hole of like when it showed these two war bands, it jumped to this image in the middle set against a red background. And this obviously not being a faction symbol. And it got me thinking, what if this symbol and against the red is representative of the chaos war bands?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I can imagine a world where the starter is two of these war bands of chaos fighting each other.
Yep.
With a set of terrain, and then the other 4 being launched independent, right?
Sure. So we've got like 4, let's say, boosters, all of which also have
like independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you have those war bands for the other 4 symbols that we saw there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not probably necessarily aligned to a singular chaos god, though they could be. They could be unique takes on a chaos god, or they could just be some kind of more like chaosy idea, right? Like the combination of tenets or something, or whatever. But each one has a chaotic like theme. Sure.
And so I got to thinking about this and made the connection that elsewhere, even in Warhammer, we see red associated with chaos.
Sure.
And I was like, well, what would the other colors be? Blue is associated with order, oftentimes. And then we often get like a green or yellow with destruction. And we get a purple or black with death. And then it like the pieces, of the situation began to fall into place. And Relian pointed out actually that the green with destruction and purple with purple with death is actually, and then red with chaos, blue with order is the color coding of Shadespire.
Sure.
Of those colors with those factions in that game. And so I think that you want to know my crazy hypothesis?
Sure. So I mean, you can probably you can trot this out pretty simply, but I assume. Go ahead. I'll let you do it.
I think what we're going to see is this. We're going to see one of two things. Either we'll get like the launch that we're getting, like season 1 of Warcry, is all chaos, right? And the narrative for this box and for the warbands that follow is they are all progressing to the Varanspire, right?
Yep, that's right.
So then the next season has to be somebody's response, because everything in AOS is narrative driven. That's part of the magic formula that they discovered with AOS, is that every development in rules writing releases has narrative development within the storyline. They've finally been like unshackled from the 11th hour. And if you watch like the Stormcast podcast and stuff like that, they talked about this idea that
I knew you weren't going to trot this out in a simple way. So every
Sorry.
season is a different thing. They pick a different location. They all fight. There's 6 war bands or some number like that per thing. Next season you get order. Season after that you get destruction. Season after that you get death. But every time they release a new one, they can all be incorporated together, and you can have like big punch-up fights between all of them that they've released thus far.
Maybe. That's one reading. You know what my other reading is, and I think the more likely one, is that subsequent seasons are more shit going down around Varenspire.
Somebody else comes in and invades.
Right.
Is that what your idea is?
Yeah. And so what happens is all these guys are doing the punch-up around Varenspire. Season 2 rolls in, and the Green Tide comes in from Gur. One of the portals open.
Sure.
And they're like, okay, let's do a punch-up. Let's do this.
Sure.
And then now it makes sense within the lore of like why you have all these guys with the terrain that you've bought, which I want to get to terrain here in a minute.
Sure.
Now fighting in the same spaces.
Yep.
Like why the introduction of the new factions.
This sort of re-invasion of the all points, because once just like so sure they bring in destruction because the orcs are always looking for a punch up. We know they hold one of the gates. And so they come roaring in, and they're happy to get in a fight all day and night with chaos, right? So then, but that, but then that happening pushes back chaos's control enough that like death sneaks in too, right? So now death is in the mix in season 3 or whatever, and they're all getting in fights. So now we have this 3-way skirmish going on with the 3 factions in the Varenspire. And then finally, like now, Sigmar's like, all right, well, now that my 3 opponents have all worn themselves down, the board is set, the pieces are moving, right? And so now he sends in his boys, right?
It's interesting. What I want to see out of Order is I want to see, like, because this is probably because I just read City of Secrets, I want to see the Order Azir.
Sure.
Which is the witch hunting group. Like it's the executioner, witch hunters, it's your devoted of Sigmar, but in like the Strike Force Alpha. So like the Callus and Toll characters. That's what they are. They're Order of Azir.
Sure.
And so I could see something like that popping up. Are you ready for my part 2 of my conspiracy theory here?
Yeah. Well, hold on for a second because I want to explore this.
Yep.
Just a little more. So I mean, I love that idea. I think that's great. And what's cool about it and the way that idea trots out. And this is my point about we probably all shouldn't internet warrior about something that got a reveal trailer and some photos, and we should probably relax and just, kind of see whatever happens.
Right.
Because, cool. It's some models and neat. In the end, it's not that big a deal. I love the idea of having let's say what you're describing is totally true.
Okay.
I think that's super cool to have a sort of narrative evolution of the effectively what would be then a Mordheim, right? Because we know that there's a narrative development track in here. They were very clear about that right from the front. Yep. And I think that'd be an awesome way to build that up over some amount of time. Now, again, how long it takes, I don't know, whatever. But I think that's a super cool idea. It sets in the world. It explores corners. It gives us we've talked about this before, the cool thing about sort of Rogue Trader and Blackstone Fortress and all that stuff in 40K was their ability to explore models that don't have enough for a whole army, but now we can get cool models of them, right? This could be the same chance to do that. So this is it's so funny. I want to answer Thanos 73's question because he said
I wanted to answer that as well.
Yeah, because I was going to actually address this the same. Much like in why don't you send an army when you could do this? Well, it could just be that the control of the portals is such that you can't logistically support an army. You can only send in small groups. It's still very dangerous territory. You can only get small functional things in there. The same reason that sometimes you send a D&D group of adventurers rather than just marching armies around everywhere, because armies are needed elsewhere. And, if you can send in a small group that can tilt the control of this thing, you do it. You use the least resources possible in military force, right?
And you can send in groups that go unobserved. It's truly the kill team situation. You can send in a group of agents to get in and get out and stir the shit or steal the item or whatever they need to do. And so you could, like Sigmar can dispatch the Order of Aesir because he knows if he sent the Knights Excelsius, it would raise the entire Varenspire.
Right. And plus, I just like the idea because, again, it gives us that opportunity to explore just these small things. So even if there was a slight, even if there's a slight narrative thing where I go like, wait, why don't they just send in the Marines or whatever? My answer is like, well, because it's cooler if they don't. Because then I get your Order of Aesir fighters, and I get like a new sweet, crazy witch hunter warband, which would be amazing.
How awesome would that be? Of just like a single warrior priest followed by like a couple witch hunters. It would just be hot.
It would be super awesome. Yeah, I would dig it. Okay, so anyways, go to part 2 of your theory.
So I like looking at this. Like one thing they touted with this is that all of the models for this game are unique. Mm-hmm. Like they're all new models. Okay. Because they're wanting to explore like other aspects of the world. They're world building with this game. And as much as I hate this idea, I actually think, and I teased this before, I think that we're going to see a world where these warbands are fixed. There may be development, like you're going to level people up or whatever, but I think that it will be balanced around having a fixed group of 6 people. Like we saw this with like the rogue trader kill team. We saw this with the when the Warhammer quest, the 40K one, when that group got rules for, we saw it as a unit. Does that make sense? We saw it as a set thing, and it got me thinking about like what can they do if these are fixed, right? Like these are fixed warbands. Mm-hmm. What if that's what they bring in from, again, this is a worst case scenario because I would hate this. Like, to be very clear, I don't want this, but I don't see a world where you can make these models customized because of the unique aesthetics. Because like one thing they're doing is world building with these weird, unique models, and they don't look multi-pose. Like I've looked over them to I don't think we're gonna have a lot of weapon swaps. And hold on, I'm getting there. Okay. But then it dawned on me, I think the other piece of this is when they, you talk about like cross product synergy.
Sure. We've been
I realize that
all day.
They actually have a product line that meshes perfectly with what they're trying to do with Warcry. If they do a set unit of 4 to 6 troops, and that product line is Shadespire.
Okay.
It would not be a stretch for them to release downloadable rules for all the Shadespire warbands for Warcry if they have fixed warband sizes.
Sure.
And at that point, now anybody that plays Warcry, they're selling the warbands to Shadespire for another game.
Yeah, I mean, so I call shenanigans on that one, and here's what I'll say.
Okay.
I if you look at the Necromunda models, they look pretty monopose, but they're actually not. They're actually quite even though they are a marvel of modeling technology. I don't think people realize how incredibly complicated it is to actually design something like what they did with Necromunda. But I mean, it's it's like a step below going to the moon, basically. I'm exaggerating some, but it is really a marvel beyond what most companies are capable of, because those Necromunda models look very monopose, but they're really not. You can actually build them in lots of different ways, and they could do the same thing here. Again, this is the starter set, so one assumes this is going to be the most lockdown of anything, but who knows what the rest of this looks like. And even I would hope you can build these warbands in lots of different ways. If they're really pushing the narrative, then you can build these warbands in different ways.
I mean, I hope so. I want a kill team rules flexibility. It doesn't have to be that.
We can stick to Necromunda. We can stick to that analogy. Necromunda gangs aren't locked, okay? And the reality is you could still then bring in, let's imagine your crossover with Underworlds, okay, with Shadespire, with Nightfall, whatever. The reality is, in the same way, Kill Team isn't locked teams, yet some special things still have locked. You know what I mean? You mentioned the Rogue Trader set that shows up. Okay, why is your screen being weird?
I don't know why it's being weird. It's weird.
Okay. At any rate, my point is that you can bring in locked sets into a thing. So sure, in a world where they let everybody else come in, you know, or even if they don't, like Gareth's whatever the initial,
Reavers,
yeah, Gareth Reavers or whatever, like those could just be a fixed Warcry warband in a world where you can still build your own Warcry warbands, and that's not impossible. Like that's just standard stuff, right?
Yep.
So,
okay, let's talk about this terrain.
Sure, let's talk about this terrain. Okay, new terrain.
So, how do you feel about it?
It's okay. There you go. I've summed up my feelings on it. I'm not sure how much of this is in the box and how much of this is stuff that they customized for their table. Like I don't know if they have little additions here that aren't necessarily like the little hanging skeleton pieces there in the background of that piece, right? Yeah, like those things, like that's part of a pre-existing other kit. So like I don't know if maybe they just had those around the studio and dropped them in here. Like obviously a lot of this stuff is new, and so it's
like
it's
that
not
head
part of an existing thing. Sure, yeah, like there's plenty of stuff in this that isn't an existing kit. Okay, but yeah, it's cool. I dig it. I mean, looks like you can build it up to some level. Looks like there's little wood planks and stuff where it's clear that they added to the existing stonework. So, okay.
Yeah, cool. Like, I guess I was wanting.
Yeah, like there you can see where it looks like they've added like boards onto that. And I would imagine like that's the kind of stuff that that's probably fairly modular, right? Like when you're doing that, like you get like the board pieces and you can kind of lay that down in different places and stuff like that. So, I mean, it looks like it can be built in different interesting ways. So that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, what I'll say is this: the Sector Imperialis, like I built a whole like one of every box in the initial release. So I built and painted a lot of that stuff, and I love it. Like it was a wonderfully modular set that was like it was hardy and there was a lot of movement space and there's a lot of height to it. Like each floor was like a double height, and like it was very modular despite the fact that it didn't look like it was. And it was substantial and there was lots of cover. And like I look at all this terrain and like, man, you better be used to using the obstacle rules because like nobody's getting like there's no actual like line of sight blocking here because everything has holes in it. Like all of it does.
Sure.
Like I look through and like all of it has holes. Like the best bet is hiding behind this skull right here, that big statue.
Sure. As a quick aside, do you see a single model here that looks like it uses a ranged weapon?
Not yet, no. Right. No, agreed.
So okay.
But we haven't really seen any wizards yet either.
No, I understand. Like, and who knows what the other 4 warbands are? I'm just saying, like, yes, it's clearly like this is at least with these initial 2, this very much feels like 2 forces of the punch up team.
I joked around, but like this is a glorified Gore Chosen. Like it's obviously not arena combat, but like it's just a bunch of Chaos Warbands punching each other.
Yeah, sure. I'm cool with that. So. And I some people have talked about whether or not like the Furies and some of the animals, like are those a
warband or are those like NPC, like part of like, scenarios?
Yeah, right. And like clearly some of the dogs are fighting with the bone dudes. So you got like you got Team Boney and Team Scuba, but some of them look like they're differently acting. Who knows is the answer. They could go either direction. I think it'd be neat. Like that guy, like Baby Manticore there, that guy's dog is clearly his buddy, right? They're posed like they're friends.
And like
he's
he
got
has
the
a whip. So,
so the traditional
like an
sign of their
trainer.
Beastmaster. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep. But like I would be down with like weird NPC monsters. I've talked many times about how all my favorite missions in Wartime were the ones that had
like don't like the giant, don't like daddy.
Yeah, don't like daddy, exactly. Things that had other monsters there that were roaming around. I always thought that was cool. So
I don't know. Like what I'll say is this: when it first dropped, I was super disappointed. Like I'll be honest. And then the farther I got down the road of like analyzing what was there, where I'm at is like I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
I'll probably buy the initial box just because I want the terrain, and the terrain is always a really good deal in these boxes. And then from there, I'll evaluate what else I buy. Like if I have to just sell all the stupid chaos dudes, I can do that too. So we'll see. I don't know.
Sure. Cool. There you go.
So,
that's Warcry.
So
I mean,
that's Warcry.
I hope here is my theory. Okay.
Yep.
On a Adepticon is in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Literally 2 weeks we'll be doing our Adepticon show, right?
Yep.
I am forced to wonder if they won't have some Warcry to play at Adepticon, the starter boxes, like they did in years past with Shadespire and with Necromunda and with trying to think what else they did. I don't know, but yeah, there you go. That'd be neat. Clearly, these boxes
at the preview
exist.
night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like that's interesting to me if they did that. We'll know in 2 weeks how this is going to pan out, because I tried out one theory where basically they do it by seasons, so you do like all chaos and then all order or all whatever. Another theory is that they drop all 4 starter boxes for all 4 factions at the same time at launch, and every starter box you buy has a different narrative. Okay, so like the chaos narrative is they're gathering, like that's what's been previewed. So the narrative for Warcry as it's been trotted out is the chaos perspective. We're gathering at Varen Spire for a punch up, and so in 2 weeks, it like again, if this alternate is true, I think we'll see the next preview box at Adepticon, and I think that because what they would do is that all the major events leading into the summer, which we have like 2 more, they could preview one of these major boxes there. Otherwise, we might get Warband. Like we'll know, I think, one way or the other at Adepticon which way they'll go, is what I would say.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to happen that way. But what I'll say is this: I also know how successful Kill Team has been.
Sure.
And I think they know that too. that they're going to be printing money with this release.
Yeah,
and
my general suspicion is we'll stick with only chaos for season for whatever this initial launch is. And much like the Kill Team train has never stopped. I mean, we saw the elites got previewed as like the first thing at Gamma, right? Yes. So you can use your dreads and stuff like that in there. I would imagine if this does fairly well, then this train will not stop either, right? Like,
well, yeah. And my concern is that I think that like all chaos could be momentum killing.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I'm certainly not like gonna. What's amazing about this is we've talked about their increased capability to produce models now, right? Like that this has ramped up. The fact that like there's 6 warbands or whatever, six forces, and they're all new models.
Yep.
Right? Should be the proof in the pudding that like, oh yeah, this is on overdrive now. Like we live in a different world than what we've known for the past forever. Like this is just different. Where they can make a whole new thing and just like, here's all these new models and here it is, we're ready to go. Right?
Enjoy. Right.
And so, here's 6 chaos-y factions of new models and they're all for this game. And like, will other seasons bring in other fights? Other forces? One would have to imagine the answer to that is absolutely yes, right? Like, if that is to say, here, like, let me put it like this: if this is a thing that's going to continue, okay, like, assume Warcry isn't just 6 chaos factions and this is the game and we're done, no more, right? Okay. Right. If it's that, then fine. If there's actually a future track on this thing, if there's going to be more releases for this thing, if it's an ongoing product in any way, okay?
Yep.
Then yes, it will confer. It will eventually contain non-chaos. Period. With 100% certainty. Okay? Because they are not going to just release chaos forever. Period. Like with a thing like this, they will expand it if it's ongoing. There you go. That's just 1 + 1. Okay? So, all right. Have we beat Warcry? Have we beat this Warcry horse to death yet?
Yeah. It's only been an hour.
All right. It's 45 minutes. I feel it's worth it for this thing.
It is. It is. It's significant, and it's something that obviously is near and dear to our heart. You know, in the tagline, like, you know, the skirmish game for the mortal realms, like that tells me that like this is obviously bigger than just some chaos dudes.
Yep. So we should all just relax and see what it is and go along on this fun journey that we know is, you know, designed by some pretty cool people, and you know, see what it is, and let it happen. Just let it happen. All right. So what do we got next? You want to talk about Forbidden Power?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a Stormcast chamber. That's what we know.
Yeah, and by the way, like we have confirmation. Like I was looking for the image from the Facebook team where they're like, they were like mocking and messing with the people who were like, not another Stormcast chamber. Did you see this image that was floating around?
Yes, where the person confirmed it's not another Stormcast chamber. Yes.
Right.
So yeah, you know, again, it was another teaser. Something that was hidden is going to be revealed. And, you know, some mistakes will come back to haunt you, and and it's not Stormcast. So whatever's down in the vaults and whatever's coming out is not a Stormcast chamber. It's something else.
They said new magic, new rules to play, new whatever. Here's, by the way, the confirmation. So nothing to do with the rest of AOS. Dang was hoping for Kill Team AOS models. Warhammer AOS, the GW responds, that sounds like skirmish, Matthew. You can play that right now. Obviously, everybody was sad to that.
Yeah, this is a different thing. It's a different thing.
And he was like,
this
you know, don't they have the rules? And then he responded, yeah, maybe something a little bit more polished. Sure. You know, wait, no, not that one. Hold on. That is.
I know. I just told you not that one.
There's another one. I know. Sorry.
Instead of just plowing forward, not listening, though, when I'm telling you it's wrong, and you're just like, no, I'm going to keep talking and not listen to the words you are saying clearly.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, I got it now. I pulled a bunch. I
can only imagine how fun it must be to be a member of the community team. Okay.
Yes. To troll people.
Like, no, I mean this sarcastically, Tom. Okay. Where like everything that you like, I love the rest of us just treat this like these aren't human beings. Here's what I mean. Like, imagine if every response, every comment, Tom, that you throw on Facebook in a day, every dumb thing you type on Facebook that I see every so often because, you know, we're friends on Facebook. Imagine if every one of those had thousands upon thousands of people waiting for you to say anything remotely cryptic so they could then screenshot it and put it on blast on the internet. Wouldn't that be a fun life for you?
Yep.
Anyway, yes, this is the one where it says it's probably blocked actually, but that's okay. Like, I think our little pictures are over top of it.
Oh,
maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. That's fine. But yes, it says, I do love his response of said chaos as their fell strongholds were cast down by Sigmar's glorious warriors.
And then they're like, seriously though, it's not a Stormcast chamber.
Right. Yeah. So there you go. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, we only got a tease. We have no idea what it is, other than the fact that obviously it's the next season of Endless Spells and new magic with some additional supplementary rules. Like, we know exactly what it is without knowing what it is. Okay, right. It's another malign sorcery type product that is going to contain the next round of Endless Spells plus some new additional, like probably optional, pseudo optional, stack optional, whatever you want to say, rules for different games, probably some different types of optional scenarios. There'll be some new narrative scenarios. There'll be a new interesting couple ways to interact with magic, probably. There'll probably be a new terrain piece related to this because there's terrain they throw you at everything because everybody can buy terrain. So hence that's always a good product to release. And there you go. That's we know what it is without knowing what it is. Right? So cool. There you go.
Yeah.
Look, I'm glad they do stuff like this and have it be narratively driven by a story, because if you don't do this, then your company ends up making the complete Shi'ar handbook. Okay? Like, that's the other option here, and none of us
No,
want
it's
that.
legit.
Yeah.
No, it's
Like,
legit.
I'll have to. We should do a think piece episode sometime. Maybe we'll do a post this year. We'll see what the production looks like. Maybe at the end of this year, during our wrap up, we'll do like is AOS the new second edition D&D? Like, are we getting in that place? Like, that'll be a fun discussion to have. All right. Okay. So other things.
But let me jump in real quick. So if we're tinfoil hatting, I think we're gonna get endless spells with this. I think that we're gonna get maybe some allegiances, or we're gonna get some like weird kind of like bolt-on rules. I think we might get some spell lores or something like that, and I think that we're gonna get some more magical items. Maybe even, I know you hate this idea, maybe even magical items that you have to purchase.
I hope to God no, never, please no. Don't do it.
You can buy, without doing battalions right now, you can buy, you can now buy command points. And so it makes sense to me. It would not surprise me if they began to allow people to buy magic items without doing battalions.
Don't do that. Do that ever. Please.
Well,
stop. Like, just stop. Don't. We don't need
I know you don't want that.
I don't want
I'm saying it would not surprise me, because like this is the trajectory that we're on of
it's
like
not.
hyper.
We don't have
like
to be on that. We don't have to be on that trajectory. That's not
we
true at all.
We don't, but it's the road we're on, Vince.
It's not. It doesn't have to be at all. The road you are purporting is the road to damnation, Tom, and I refuse to believe that that's where we are. All right.
Okay. Sure.
So, look, I'm not just going to disagree with you that it could. I'm saying don't do it.
Oh no, I agree. Yeah, don't do it, GW. But that's where we could be headed.
At any rate. All right. Anything else on Forbidden Power?
Nope.
Cool.
Nope.
All right. Let's talk about
Munchkin. Munchkin AOS.
Yeah. I don't play Munchkin. I've never played Munchkin. I don't.
You haven't ever played it?
Nope.
Man, I have Munchkin, and we played around our house. Maybe I'll probably get Munchkin AOS, because why not?
Sure. If you like Munchkin, that sounds cool. Yeah, I know nothing about it. I've never played it. I don't know it. There you go.
Neat.
That's what
cool.
I think. All right.
Yay, more IP licensing. And then finally, the Blades of Corn previews, like all of the Blades of Corn stuff. They're here.
Yes. They're all here. Obviously, we'll talk about it in more detail. The relevant part is the book releases on the 23rd. I want to say a couple things, and then there's a tournament-related thing I'm going to say here, too. Okay, so two quick things I want to say about this. Blades of Corn book releases the 23rd. They previewed a bunch of stuff from it. I'm not going to get into the previews because the previews are just, they're whatever. Okay, so you can check them out. It's like previews are previews. It's impossible to say exactly what that thing is out of context like that. Right. We got basically how the endless prayers work. The prayers of Corn. Clearly, priests are real important. The big temple, their judgments. The big temple is clearly quite important for them. Priests are very important for Corn.
It's a great line of sight blocker too.
Sure, it's quite big. Corn is clearly going to be really, really, really about punishing magic. Like, they've obviously do, but like, they're like, no, for real though. Like, no, seriously. I find it fascinating that we released like a very magic heavy army in the Skaven. And then we were going to release this like
two fairly magic heavies, because we had the Gits were also fairly magic heavy as well.
Sure, yeah. And then all of a sudden we're going to get this Corn release that's just like ready to punch nerds like day and night. This is the army of nerd punching. So I find that fascinating. The prayers are cool. That's fine. They need enough theory. You just look at the rules for them. They all seem fine. They'll clearly have points, same as the endless spells do.
Right.
And so I want to segue into a quick public service announcement.
Oh yeah. Adepticon.
about Adepticon. So the release date of the book and the associated update of the app will cause some challenges because the new Blades of Corn book will not be legal at Adepticon because Adepticon uses a cutoff date. It says everything released after this date is not valid for use at the tournament. And so as a result of that, if you are playing Corn and you try to rely on like just the app, like let's say you just have the app and you have
or the FAQ potentially,
sure, whatever, and you have stuff in there in your phone or in your tablet or whatever, and you're just relying like on Azier or on the AOS app, those scrolls and rules and points or whatever will be wrong when you're referencing them during the AOS tournament. So as a result of this, Alex, the tournament organizer, has put out a set of guidelines for what, if you're playing Corn, you should do in preparation. So you have the proper rules, war scrolls, points, etc. And so I will post the link to the Adepticon AOS Twitter where the guidelines were shared. I want to make sure we boost the signal on this because I don't want anybody to have a bad time at Adepticon and show up and
make sure you print your lists because like War Scroll Builder will get updated. So you got to pre-print your list. You need to pre-print your FAQ potentially. Don't rely on the app for the rules because all of that will not be there. All of that will not be ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll link I'll drop. I mean, it's just Adepticon AOS basically, but I'll link the Twitter down below. And that way you can go look up the rules. So if you're playing Corn at Adepticon, please go there. Please follow this stuff. Don't give yourself a bad time at the event.
Right.
And so there we go. Okay, cool. So that's that. And I want to segue from that event to say that we have another event, right? So I sent this to you. This is the South Australian GT, which relates to my pick of the week, which is, so the South Australian GT is this weekend, right? And my pick of the week is Doom and Darkness's list review for it. It's a good show. As usual, Doom has become the master of like the all-in list review shows. The dude he is a marathon, man, when it comes to these like list reviews and commentaries. It's a great show. It's a lot of fun. If you're in South Australia, like around the Adelaide area, you should check that out. I will link down there so you can go get the information on that tournament. So there you go. Okay. So that was kind of like that was cheeky. It was like news and a pick of the week and everything. I'll link Doom's video, which also has links to the tournament itself. So if you're in that Southern Australia area and you're not already going to the tournament this weekend, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you could go. So there you go. Have fun. Okay. Tom, anything else we got?
Nope. No. That's it.
That's it. That is all. Oh, Cinderfall said he's going with Scourge Privateers to the South Australian GT. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love the idea that the Scourge Privateers are getting represented. Good man. Good man. Immediate hobby hero right there. We've got a hobby hero alert. That's a hobby hero. Okay. So, Tom, let's just go into pick of the week. What do you want to share with everybody?
I'm going to actually piggyback on because there's been so much news and we did, like, I don't even feel like we did it justice. I'm going to promote AOS Shorts and his content. Like he condensed a lot of the content and summarized it and has it all with pretty photos and well organized. So check it out. Obviously we promoted AOS Shorts before, but I want to encourage you all to check it out.
Yeah, people should really be following Dan like on Twitter, and because he always announces that stuff, shares it very timely, works so fast, right? So like there you go. Like it's just a great source. If you're not inclined to like be following everything that comes up on Warhammer community and searching the news and all that, you can always rely on Dan because he collates everything, gets the information together for you in an easily digestible format. It's the way to be. Okay, cool. So let's go to some hobby time. Tom, what are you working on there? You've got something in front of you. What's in your hand?
Indeed. Marathi is quickly approaching the end. So
there you go.
I'm working on some dirt. Yay.
You're working on
Did
dirt?
some conversions. Still, yeah, I'm working on dirt right now on her base. Dirt and skulls. So most of the rest of her is done. So
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
She's come together pretty nice. I need to do some more blending on the wings and on the skin. But getting close, and then after that I'll just have a handful of dwarves that I want to do for the for some additional Adepticon stuff, and then I'll be ready for Adepticon.
Nice. My hobby time has been like furious hobbying on the little time I've been at home over the past 2 weeks. We have sacrificed sleep, but that's okay to get work done. I am happy with the progress. I think I'll be able to make my last entry for Crystal Brush here finished up this weekend, and most of the class stuff is prepped up. I've got to get everything ready for that. I'll give a shout out here. Don't forget that in addition to Crystal Brush at Adepticon, there's also Resin Beast. Creature Caster is having their first painting competition at Adepticon. It is Resin Beast. It happens there in their booth, and you can paint up a Creature Caster model. Myself, Jason Craze, Shoshi, and crap. Who else is judging? Oh, and James Waffle are going to be judging that. So that's going to be a really exciting contest. I'm super excited to see what everybody does as far as the Creature Caster models. If you've got a Creature Caster model and you're going to be at Adepticon, get that painted up and bring it along and put it in there. It's the first year they're running the competition, and I'm super excited to see what everybody does there. My only sadness is that I can't
selling models.
Yes.
Will they be selling models?
Oh yes.
Will they have all their entire range, or it will be limited?
I think they bring most of the range. I don't know if they have absolutely everything, but they have most everything there. They will have the new, like some of the new champion models, like you know what I'm talking about. Like we moved down scale to like the
heroes.
Yeah, the heroes. They are going to have those there. They'll also have.
I want one of those undead dragons.
Sure. I don't know if they'll have that dragon there or not. I'm not sure. But the so they're going to have a lot of cool stuff there. They're going to have some of the new paints they have there on display, even though they won't be on sale. And which I've been using those a lot. I really like those. They're like, I like them more the more I use them. They have found their way into my rotation quite heavily. So yeah, come check it out. I'm going to be hanging out in the booth some. Shoshi will be hanging out in the booth some. James Wolf will be hanging out in the booth some. So you can come say hi. It's going to be a very busy Adepticon between that and judging the paint for the AOS event as well, and teaching and all that stuff. So it's going to be a very busy time, but I look forward to seeing everybody there. I literally can't wait. I'm very, very excited for this year. One more quick shout out from me. Do not forget, I'll link down, the link is down there to where you can go. It's already in the comments. But the link is down there. The Dallas class happening at the end of April still has some spots. Want to give a little boost on that. If you want to come spend a weekend with me in Dallas and paint up, we're going to do a Night Titan. So we're going to do a big robot. But even if you're not a big fan of robots, it's full of a lot of good advice and paint techniques that are going to be useful to you no matter what you do. We spend a lot of time on things like freehand, on things like weathering. So, you know, there's a lot to have there. So I hope that we've got the class. It's a little over half. So I'd like to see some more spots still. And we got about a month and a half until the class is at the very end of April. So if you're in the Dallas area or you know anybody who's around there, please spread the word and so on. I would love to see you there that weekend. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. It's a great venue. Also, we are finalizing up the teaching. Like I'll be doing 2 different classes in the UK in advance of Warhammer Fest. Those aren't up for sale yet, but they will be very soon. We're just finalizing some details and then they'll go up. So if you're in the UK, I'll be doing 2 classes in advance of Warhammer Fest. So you can check that out real soon. Probably either by the end of this week or early next. So there you go. And all that's down below. Okay. I'm done with promoting this stuff.
Cool.
Let's talk about Flesh Eater Courts.
I'm in. Let's do this.
All right. So, there was a question of any classes in the Boston area. You'd have the whole schedule's in the link down there. I'm not teaching in Boston, but somebody at CK Studios might be Thanos. That would be my answer. All right. Flesh Eater Courts. So previously on X-Men, Morph died, obviously. But beyond that, also, we covered all of the like grand courts, talked about that stuff, went through these. I think the general agreement was 3 out of the 4 of them have play. I think both of us think that Blister Skin is actually the one that has the longest term traction, but Gristlegore is the one that garners the most attention and has the most chance to give people a bad game. Like, even though it is at the level of, it's one of those weird things that, like, at the level of competitive play, it's perfectly fine and probably balanced. Although there are certain armies that will just be nearly impossible to kill it, but there are certain armies that will just handle it without an issue. Like, it's very swingy, right?
Yeah,
and
like you get an army that can take a single charge and then punch back with range, and they will eat that guy for lunch.
Yeah, like, I can't imagine being afraid of that. Like, I fear no Gristlegore with, like, 90% of the Skaven armies I've built. That would just, that's like a easy out. Like, no, that's not scary. You can kill clan rats all day and then I will melt that dude's face right off. I could, like, at the same time I was like picturing playing that list with my Iron Jaws, and I was like, I don't know
what to do.
I don't even know here. I'm suddenly switching my position on the doppelganger cloak, I guess, because I can, it's the only way I can, like, if I can get the mega boss with a doppelganger cloak in on him and activate it, then theoretically, I guess I could stop him from attacking and punch him dead. So I guess that's my only option.
But you know what's going to happen? Then? You're going to punch him dead, and he's going to spend 2 command points and still punch you dead.
Sure, and then kill my mega boss. Yeah, but I mean, okay, if I took out the threat,
right,
that's probably
right. Like, the only way to safely remove that piece is range.
Sure.
Or piling and killing hero phase.
I'm not sure that trading the mega boss for that guy is actually a bad trade. That's probably fine. You don't really need that. Like, whatever. This isn't a freaking Iron Jaw show. Just an Orky show now. No, like, the point being is that there are certain armies that will have a very bad time with that list. At any rate, and it is very punishing to new players that don't know how to chaff and play against it and stuff like that. Okay, so that was where we left off last week. This week, let's pick up. We didn't really talk about the individual units much or the battalions. So shall we start with the battalions and kind of use that to break out and talk about some of the scrolls? Okay.
Yeah.
So battalions. There is a good number of them. I'm not sure any of them are great. What is it with battalions in these books? We're like, we'll get one book and I'm like, yeah, okay, I dig all those. And then we'll get the next book and I'm like, nah. Just like, it's such a swingy thing.
Really? Like, there's some battalions in this that I really liked.
Yeah, sure. They're okay. My point was it's swingy. Swingy means there's a spectrum. I didn't say it's always 1 in 10. It's just saying it goes around. These are all right. They're okay. All right. So I'm saying, like, in this book, like, I think that there are some that are ignorable, and I think some are flippin' amazing. All right. Now let's get into that. We have. I love that they threw in. They threw in the Impossible Battalion. We're back to that. We've got the Cannibal Court. That's like one of every battalion. Just forget about this. It's never happening. Like, it's a 10,000 point game. All right, cool. Okay.
I think they do that for collectors.
Sure. I mean, whatever. It's fine. It's not a real battalion. It's cool. Like, it's fine. All right. So let's get into
the most offensive thing about that, though, is that they include match play points.
I'm fine with it. Why not? Sure. You look, someday I may want to play a 10,000 point game. So that's what I say to you. And if they didn't have, why wouldn't they include points? If they didn't include, couldn't include it in some. Again, it's fine. I'm okay with these silly super. Like that one's so over the top, right? Because it is literally like a 9,000 point battalion. Like it's so over the top. It's fine. The ones that bother me are the ones that are like mega battalions, but they're kind of close, right? They're like 2,600 points, and I'm like, oh come on, guys. You know what I mean? Like if you min build it, you still miss the big game. I'm like, now you're just being mean. But when it's just completely like that one's just moonshot. It's so astronomical. Like you know what this is. All right. So let's break down these battalions. Okay. So the royal family, okay, which is basically one of the abhorrent arch regents, or a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, or a Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon, and then 2 to 6 real abhorrent Ghoul Kings.
Yep.
Right. Not
you can take a walk.
Yeah.
Just go. You don't. You can stop because you don't need to read the rest of it.
I agree. It's like I cannot picture the army where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna load up on a ton of these Ghoul Kings. This because we're talking about the regular foot Ghoul King here, right? And
can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Sure, go ahead.
And that's the Arch Regent.
Okay.
Like, I don't know who in their right mind would ever, like, run the Abhorrent Ghoul King at, like, what, 140? I have that right from memory? Or is it 160?
It's 140. Oh, you're right.
It's 140. Yes. Okay. When for 60 more points, you grab the Arch Regent.
And you get, like...
everything. You get the world. You get the world at 60 points.
Sure.
Because that Arch Regent is like a casting 2 spells dude who his spell is better, like by default. Obviously, like you could benefit from having both spells. I get that. But the fact is that, and like, so his spell, instead of +1 attack, it's a D3 attacks. But even more than that for summoning, like the difference in like that Arch Regent at 200 points summons 200 points of models turn 1.
Sure. Because he can bring on a courtier, he can bring on 3 knights, or he can bring on...
Well, the courtiers are going to be like, we'll max out at 160 if he brings on a courtier. If you max out like a flayer, or the other guy is 160 or 170. If he brings on 20 ghouls, that's 200 points. He literally pays for himself at the top of 1.
Sure. Whereas the Abhorrent Ghoul King can bring on like basically a unit of 10 serfs. Right.
Yeah, so like here's a tip. If you're ever thinking about running 20 ghouls, just ask yourself, would you rather have an Abhorrent Ghoul King that can just bring those on at the top of 1? Because it's the same cost, and now you have an extra hero casting 2 spells around, just kind of dinking around.
Mm-hmm.
Like so right now, the way points currently are, you always have to ask yourself is, would it be better use of my points just to do an Abhorrent Ghoul King? So, like, for example, the Vargolf Courtier. He's the one that can buff any of the models and all that, and, for like, healing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I buy him for 160, or do I pay 200, and at the top of 1, put him on the table?
Right. Sure.
And then get another wizard to cast 2 spells per round.
Right.
Like, he's just so egregiously undercosted right now.
Well, and we should note here that the other really important element of this, right, is that if you have the Charnel Throne and you have the Abhorrent Arch Regent on the Charnel Throne or near it, within an inch of it, right, which there's kind of no reason you wouldn't, basically.
No, right. You're going to set it up and then like hump it with all of them. Yep.
Right. You actually get to it gets even better because, of course, you can then execute this summon that you just mentioned to like bring on the Vargolf or bring on like whatever the thing is you're bringing on. You can do it without actually spending the command point, right? Which is a huge deal because most of this army is really command point hungry. So like being able to do that for free is really nice.
Yeah, like there were moments where I was looking at this where it's like, okay, I don't know that the answer is not almost always when you want additional units to put more of these guys, just more Arch Regents, to go like 2-4 Arch Regents.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're doing so much for so little And they also give you flexibility. So if you need 80 ghouls, you just drop 80 ghouls on the table.
Right.
If you want a bunch of extra heroes to flood the board and, like fly, or you want to bring on 40 ghouls and two courtiers to back them up and heal them, you can do that. It's just the flexibility that it brings is the Archregent is egregious. And so when I look at this royal family, I'm like, nope. If those were 2 to 4 or 2 to 6 Archregents, I'd be like, okay, I'm listening. But I'm never going to field that many Abhorrent Ghoul Kings because they themselves are attacks. Because their summoning's not even that good.
Sure. All right, so let's talk about agreed. Attendance at court. 1 Crypt Haunter Courtier and 2 units of Crypt Horrors. You like this one? What's interesting about this one is that it synergizes with a model not in this battalion, right? So it's very rare that this army actually does this a few times where it has the battalion reach out to other models that are theoretically in the army but not in the battalion. You can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by models from this battalion if your general is an abhorrent Archregent or abhorrent Ghoul King and has not been slain. No range, just if your general is one of those things. Bolded, by the way. Abhorrent Ghoul King bolded.
I think that got corrected, by the way. I need to have to check the FAQ. I know one of these that were bolded, they went to non-bolded. And I think that it might be this one. I'd have to check the FAQ. But regardless, I don't know. It's not bad. I like reroll hits. There are other ways to get reroll hits, though, especially with the courtiers. And so actually reroll hits is really, really common. If you go to flayers themselves, funny story. Or no, flayers aren't the ones that have the rerolls.
Yeah, I mean because this is Crypt Horrors. So these are your beaters.
Oh, I'm not sure. These are horrors. No, I take that back. You always get to reroll hit rolls already with courtiers if they're within 18 inches of a friendly abhorrent.
Okay.
So it's completely redundant.
I'm not seeing anything, by the way, in the FAQ that the ruler of all he surveys is what you're talking about, where it removed the keyword format.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Yep.
Sorry, I had to go and research this real quick.
That's good. No, okay. Yeah, let me put a fine pin on this. That attendance at court does nothing.
Okay.
Because, no, I'm sorry. It gives rerolls to the Crypt Haunter Courtier.
Well, it would also eliminate the range requirement, right? Because all it's saying is your guy has to be on the table.
Yes. So both of those units gain it already at 18 inches. This says that they don't have to, they could be anywhere on the table.
Right. It extends that, yes.
So it just increases the range. It doesn't actually add abilities.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a terrible thing, honestly. If you were already running this, okay? These are kind of big models. I don't know that you're going to have huge groups of Crypt Horrors. I mean,
right.
You're probably running them in 6 packs, maybe 9. I don't know that you're really putting 12 on the table, right? They could end up being battle line, and it's one of those wholly within things. They're decent sized bases. Generally you need a battalion anyways. If you already had all these models, I feel like that's actually not a bad thing, because it's just sort of if the dude's alive, then you don't need to worry about this range anymore. It actually makes the army a lot easier to maneuver and play, because you don't have to keep everybody sticky, right?
Yes, and it's only 110 points. It's only 110 points.
Yeah, this is a cheaper battalion, really.
But let me make a very bold statement here. Almost without exception, the courtiers are all taxes.
Okay.
Because almost any time you would buy any of the non-Crypt Gas courtiers, which are all going to end up being over 120 points or so, fairly expensive. You can always just upgrade to the Abhorrent Ghoul, for not a lot of points. and gain a lot of utility out of it. Does that make sense? And so, like, anytime I do the math for like the Crypt Horror or the Crypt Haunter, Crypt Infernal courtiers, or courtiers, it's not courtiers, it's courtiers.
I'm going to keep saying courtier. You can say whatever you like.
No, sorry, it's courtier. I just have to do the math, and the archregents are just that well pointed that it makes me just want to run them and then put down a bunch of Vargulfs, like Vargulf courtiers.
Sure, I get it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, right? Because your point is like run a bunch of archregents, summon Vargulfs, use the Vargulf to sort of return a bunch of slaying models, right? From anything you need to return to. Sure, I get it. I mean, that being said, I'm still not sure this one's like super duper tax. Like this one seems okay. All right.
It's okay.
Yeah, like if I was already using these models, I'd probably include this battalion.
Sure.
And, there you go. All right.
Yep.
Cool.
Crypt players.
Yeah. You want to talk about the Dead Watch? This is the flare thing. So it's one more unit of flares. Like the other one was one courtier and 2 units.
Of
this
horrors,
one is of horrors. Yeah, sorry. This one is one Crypt Infernal courtier, the Flayer courtier, and 3 units of Crypt Flayers.
And notably, this is the only one that is like the Flayer focused one. And what this does is in the hero phase, you can choose one of the units in this battalion, and that's within 3 inches of the enemy, and pile in an attack for free.
Yep.
That's not too bad. Because it doesn't have to be near your courtier. It's just choose one of them. They're going to pile an attack for free. And then I would have to look at the command abilities. Do those specify? Yeah, those are probably all, like, those extra pile-ins are all in the hero phase, or in the combat phase. So that won't synergize with those. But the cool thing about the flares is they're going to drop mortal wounds on natural rolls of 6, in addition to still getting to roll their attacks, like their wound checks.
Yeah, again, this one's only 110 points. I think this one, like you and I both talked about the Blister Skin Army, using a fair amount of flares and liking that build. To me, again, this doesn't feel like the worst tax in the world.
Yeah, remind me about, okay, like when we get on, I want to talk about the flares with, So, like, Dead Watch is not bad. Actually, I think Dead Watch has some gas in the engine. Anytime you get to pile in the hero phase is pretty fantastic.
Because it just lets you can break the unit free, right? Like it lets you, like that's the key. It suddenly, like, because we've all been in that situation during a game where you plowed into some weaker unit, and then you got like 2 or 3 models left, and like you really need that unit to go somewhere else now, right, during your turn, and yet you can't because they're stuck on 2 or 3 models. Awesome. Right. Well, this lets you clear that out. So that's cool. Okay. Right on. Now, I think you're the big fan of the abattoir, right? Like this.
Yeah, I love the abattoir because it's doing something that's like super non-intuitive. Okay. So, and all this does is at the end of the combat phase, roll a dice. Let me read this. For each enemy model within 3 inches of any model from the battalion. So unlike almost every other version of this in the game, it's like roll a dice for every unit within 3 inches of a model. On a 6, it does a D6 more or D3 mortal wounds. That's the normal how this reads. Mm-hmm. This is roll a dice for every model within 3 inches. Every model within 3 inches of any of your models from this battalion. Every 6 is a mortal wound.
Right. And so what's in this battalion is 1 Crypt Haunter courtier. We're back to your old buddy there. 2 units of Crypt Horrors and 1
who has a bunch of rerolls. Yeah.
And 1 unit of Crypt Ghouls. Yeah.
Yep. And so like this lets you to do a bunch of big base guys and a huge block of 40 Crypt Ghouls. And if you're not in Gristlegore, you can make that courtier your general. And he makes those horrors your battle line. And so what that means is suddenly that whole battalion covers all of your battle line.
Sure.
And so that's pretty good.
Well, and you had is this the foundation of sort of the army you had kind of you had built out?
So,
You want to talk about your because you and I were having a conversation about like, and one of the things I said was like, apparently everybody's going to have these like everybody's going to have these chambers now. I don't know what else to call them, right? Like obviously here they're called grand courts, but I'm trying to think of like a generic term, right?
Yep.
And so like I'm just going to call them chambers because that's what they are in Stormcast. They've really cottoned to this, that people seem to enjoy this, right? And what I mentioned is like, that's fine, but I think I like the implementation of that where they're sort of optional and you don't feel compelled like you're silly if you don't take them. Right. Well, notably, by the way, the Gits book doesn't have that. But like, and good. I don't want to see everybody have all the same tools. Like, I actually like game elements being deployed in a differentiated fashion. I think that's cooler, by the by. Like, I don't think every book should have everything. Otherwise, everybody's just the same and the world is boring. I like it when things have different sort of customization abilities. So please use your game elements sparingly, GW. But like, I think that my favorite implementation of this is probably like Beasts of Chaos, or maybe actually the Stormcast themselves, where like I feel like I would be making a perfectly valid choice to not use them. Like Beasts might be a little bit. This is a really hard thing to nail, right? Where you've got to like I understand I'm asking for the tightest of tight ropes here, where I'm saying like it should be an equally valid choice. You need to hit the exact 50% mark, right? Of like, it's completely valid to not select it or to select it. That's really tough. Like, I'm asking for something that is very, 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 very hard from a design perspective. So I'm aware of that. And I was saying that, like, I don't know when I wouldn't take these grand courts. They fall like so far on the other side for me.
Right.
But then you had said, well, actually, your favorite list you built doesn't use a grand court. So you want to kind of walk through that?
Yeah, I'll just briefly mention this. Like, as much as I do like the grand courts, I considered running an abattoir list not using that and just using the delusions, and mainly the Great Feast. The Great Feast, we've talked about the utility of that before. The Great Feast gives you the ability to like, you get to pile in for free one of your extra units each combat phase, which means that like
you mean the feast day.
The feast day. I call the Great Feast, but yes, the feast day. And so what that lets you do is like, on every round, you basically get 2 free command points because you get to pile in for free in your turn and pile in for free in their turn.
Right. You can use Feeding Frenzy without a command point being spent. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so like there's value just in that ability, but what pushes over the top for me is that like you can if you make a courtier your general, and like this is a really weird like grab that a lot of people probably didn't ever consider. If you make one your general, you get to choose from the nobility chart of command traits, and one of the abilities is Dark Acolyte. Now, Dark Acolyte, what it does is it gives that courtier the keyword of like wizard, and they basically gain the spellcasting profile off the Abhorrent Ghoul King War Scroll, which would include his spell. And so I've already talked about how I don't want to ever run an Abhorrent Ghoul King, because I would always rather upgrade him to an Archregent. Well, here I get to like have my cake and eat it too, because basically I can make my courtier a general at no cost, and then give him the spell that the only reason why I would take the Regent is for the spell, so that instead of just doing a D3 bonus attacks from the Archregent, I could do a D3 +1 because both spells stack. And so, and I don't lose anything for this guy being my general. And it makes the courtier like a very viable, extra tool.
Sure. So like suddenly that Crypt Horror Courtier, whatever, that guy, he's your general. You can give him, this command trait. So now he's also like a Crypt Horror boss that's casting like the, regular Abhorrent Ghoul King, right? So he's casting the the +1 attack spell. You can have a different Archregent in there who can then do the D3 spell, and now you've got access to both without needing to actually sink the 140 points into the Ghoul King. So you're getting sort of the full suite of it.
And one thing you want to think about is diffusion of power. Vince is the one that really kind of pushed me on this, just from a list design standpoint. That like you want to spread out power and make as many like targets that the enemy's going to have to make decisions about on the table at any one point in time. And for oftentimes people will stack like their best item on their best hero, who's also a wizard and the general.
Right.
And so like when your opponent has a bunch of warp lightning cannons, like it's obvious they just dump all of that into that target and remove it,
right,
and like make it a non-decision. But when you have this guy who's a spellcaster, who's your general, which there are missions that ride on killing the enemy general, they now have to suddenly make a decision between like removing that like Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, who's going to eat the army, or do they remove the general and try to score that secondary objective?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I am a big proponent of this. I mean, it's ironic because, you know, the traditional term for piling all your power into one thing is building a Death Star, right? I mean, that's traditionally been applied to units.
Yeah.
But the problem with the Death Star is that there's always one weakness. If you blow it up, the whole empire crumbles.
Right.
There's one weak spot.
We learned that in Star Wars, and that didn't go so well for him.
That's why I've always talked about, like, in my opinion, the armies that do the best are the things that don't rely on a single skew, on a single powerful piece and stuff like that. The things that actually do the best are the things that can put multiple power pairs that then punch above their weight onto the table.
Multiple centers of power.
Correct. And create multiple centers of power that the enemy's forced to make decisions on. If you only have one thing that's scary, the only decision your opponent has to make is, how do I kill that one scary thing? Right. This is why I don't like Gristlegore in general, because really Gristlegore focuses on like really piling onto one scary thing. If your opponent can remove that, they knock a lot of the wind out of your sails. Not all, but a lot. Whereas in a more diffuse force like what you're describing, it's you know, you've got lots of different avenues to victory there. Yeah.
Yep. And so you still have room for like an Archregent in this list and a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist with the rerollable bite and all that. And so like you have other options. You have other tools that are going to be threats. And what's so fascinates me about this is that there's a passive effect of basically eating your enemy's models at the end of every combat phase. It's not your combat phase. So you're literally rolling for all of their units in combat every round of combat.
Yeah, and it's a big radius too. It really is, like 3 inches off of any model from this
battalion. And those Cryptors have huge bases. And so if you like take these guys in blocks of like 6 and 9, like you suddenly like are reaching, like if you hit their unit, you could encapsulate like a unit of 30 Witch Elves. Like you could get all, because they're going to be pushing in trying to get people into combat, which is going to move them and give you more dice. Right. And so that means that at the end of every combat, you're going to roll 30 dice.
Yeah. You're plaguing the weak plague. You're plaguing every enemy unit sort of in combat with you every combat phase. Like
with all of your blocks of troops.
Yeah. The reality is it's unbelievably destructive over the long term. The fact that it's triggering every combat phase that realistically
for every model.
Right. The like in reality, we have to think about this like, well, okay, you know, maybe I'm not in combat. Let's assume we don't get in combat turn 1 at all. That's probably not realistic, but let's just say you're not, right? Okay, well that means you're probably having combats happen between, you know, battle round 2 through 5 or end of the game, right? So like that's 8 triggers of this going off on what could be, you know, significant bulks of their army. It's just a lot of mortal wound, like just spam happening out there of like things dying. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm and it actually like, and it covers all your battle line in when that courtier is your general. And so if you don't want to make him a wizard, you can always put like this thing in Death Watch. Or you could put it in Gristlegore if you really wanted that courtier to be scarier.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like the idea. I mean, I love the idea of it being. I like using Feast Day. I like having not the Grand Courtier. I really do.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Nope. And so anyway, so this is what so that's one of the non-Grand Court lists that I was kind of storming up, which is using this Abaddor.
No, you turned me around on it. I was actually really like I hadn't thought it through, but one of my sadnesses with the book, I told you this, was when I first read it was like, oh man, these feasts are so like these grand illusions are so cool, and like some of the command traits are actually kind of attractive, and I was like, oh, never mind, I don't get to play with any of that. Right. So like actually thinking that, oh no, maybe there is some gas in the engine here of going other directions. I take back my initial reading of this, and it might actually be closer to what I was hoping it, those kind of.
Yeah, I don't think it works for every list. I think oftentimes those Grand Courts are like default, like they're just better options.
Mm-hmm.
But in this instance, like I really liked what the diversity was bringing to the table.
Sure. So, any other battalions that interest you?
I mean, I'll say this: like Ghoul Patrol's good. It's good min battle line. Like it does what you want. It helps you move units around the table. Whatever. It's fine. Ghoul Patrol's doing what Ghoul Patrol has always done, basically, except it's not returning models, which is really sad now.
Sure. It lets you ambush a unit. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Cool. King's Ghouls is nice. The advantage here is that they don't take battle shock tests, but the problem is that they're it's like a Holy Within, just that Crypt Gas Courtier, and I know some people have been really turned on by King's Ghouls. I am not impressed by it.
Well, I mean, the Crypt Gas Courtier, again, so this goes to the old trick. Like, you think about a battalion like this, where it's granting the battle shock immunity.
Yep.
And you and I have talked about this 100 times, right?
Yep.
So you're pinning your battle shock immunity to a 4 wound, right? 5 up save, 5 up, 6 up feel no pain hero, right?
Yep.
That's what's making you battle shock immune.
Yep.
Okay, Tom. So Tom, you're playing your KO, and this is going to stop you from alpha striking a unit off, right?
No, it's not.
Battle shock immunity. Let me go through the example.
Sure.
So you are now faced with that reality. You're like, oh darn, if I shoot into the Crypt Ghouls, these 2 big units of Crypt Ghouls that I want to take, because if I peel 15 ghouls off, and then they roll a battle shock test, on average, I'm going to get a bunch more ghouls, right?
Right.
Okay, great. So, but I'm not if that guy is making them immune. So what is the solution, Tom? What's the solution?
Have a stray guy shoot that guy off the table.
Right. You shoot the 4 wound guy off first, and then you plow through the regular unit.
That's how KO could kill Fire Slayers, is they killed the battle shock immunity granting bubble guy.
Right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So and that you are really pinning your battle shock immunity to the weakest of linchpins. That dude is very killable.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Cool.
So next is my other favorite battalion.
All right.
And that's the Royal Mordants.
Okay.
I love this battalion. I can't tell you how much I love this battalion.
Okay.
So it's the Vargolf Courtier, which is the one that I like the most out of all the courtiers. Okay. Sure. Because he can restore any set of units, and he's not too shabby in combat.
No, he's pretty. It's a pretty great deal for 160. He's a solid model for his cost. Yes.
Yep. And then it's the mix of the Crypt Hordes, the Crypt Flayers, and the Crypt Ghouls. Okay.
One of each. Yep.
One of each. And here's the big push. In your hero phase, pick a unit from this battalion wholly within 16 of the courtier from the same battalion. They can make a normal move.
Yep.
And you go, well, that's pretty good. Mobility, and first, mobility is king.
Sure. Your flares just shot 12 inches across the board. That right there happened. Okay.
Oh, cool. You're thinking way too small.
I'm taking it in the simplest form, Tom, to set up the basic example.
Yes. Those are flares can shoot 12 inches in the hero phase, and then when they move again, they get another 12 inches, so 24 inches. But the tools in this army are such that that is small potatoes. There is if you run Blisterkin and the right sequence of spells and abilities, that unit moves 42 inches before they charge.
Did you need to get to the other table? Are you trying to not only cross the board, but cross the space in between the tables and go fight on Like you're on table 7 and you're trying to go fight on table 14.
Yeah, basically. Like, okay. And so, but my point being that like you can missile entire units anywhere on the table with this, and that's what I love. Is that like it is the extreme mobility, and then things like Blisterkin, like that +2 to flat +2 to movement goes to +4. Or obviously there's a spell that it'll give something flying. If it already has flying, it gains run and charge. And so you can gain like the 6 inches of extra movement from the run. Obviously Cogs is always a favorite in this type of combination.
I was waiting on it. I wasn't going to say it.
Well, I mean, but in Cogs, like again, you're double dipping. You're at 4 inches of base movement and 2 inches on your charge. And so like it's
Tom, that's what we call a triple double right there.
It's a triple double indeed. And so I love the Royal Mordants, and I believe Ben Johnson recently took this to another event and did very well with it. Running the Royal Mordants in a Blisterkin. So it's 120 and it's worth every penny because making people move normally in the hero phase is good.
It's super good.
It's super good. Yeah. Like if you ever wanted to do a first turn charge, you can always do that. Like always. Like it's not possible. Like all of these units could get in doing that in Blisterkin.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yes.
So and this is an all melee army, so you need to get in. Like this is the type of thing that like you really need to put some meat into combat.
Well, we should state that like I think when a lot of people think about stuff like this too, they think about it like when they're reluctantly crouched on the starting line, right? Just like waiting. And that's actually the wrong way to think about an ability like this. Sure. The ability to like throw your army across the table at the top of one or whatever. Like, yeah, that's cool, but that's also a really good way to lose games.
Right.
What you need to think about with this kind of like incredible movement is how valuable it is every other time except that.
Right.
When you're on turn 2, turn 3, and the Stormcast have dropped from the heavens and they've gone over here. There's somebody on an objective.
And they have 4 inches of movement.
You need to get to, right? Like somebody's on an objective and like they managed to remove one of your key pieces over on this side. You've got a unit that can kill them, but it's way over here. If only you could get the thing over your power that's over here, way over to the other side to actually apply it, you could win. But you can't, because how many times they stood there and gone, there's no way I can get unit from here over to here, right? That's where the actual power of movement stuff like this comes from. It's not like everybody just thinks in the simplest terms of like, oh, cool, I can smash round 1. And it's like, no, that's quick way to lose. The power of this is in the mid to late game where your pieces are always where you need them to be. I have submitted forever that if in turn 3 and 4, you can always have every piece that you still have remaining wherever you need it.
Yeah,
you stand a much better chance of winning the game. Like you are then on the good foot, right? And that's after like things have been, because that's where every battle plan, doesn't survive contact with the enemy or whatever the statement is.
Well, this lets you just not ignore the enemy and go somewhere else
and adjust. Right. What you need, like good armies can adjust mid game when the situation has changed. So yes, I agree with you. I think this.
And by the way, as an aside, Lords of the Burning Sky with a Blisterkin ability also lets you pick up units out of combat and redeploy them.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Sure.
Like if you ran this Royal Mordants with Blisterkin, like you have maximum supreme mobility. You can be wherever you want to be with everything whenever you want to be there.
I agree. Like that. The Royal Mordants with Blisterskin is that's the hotness right there, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So Royal Menagerie, this is your Gristlegore battalion.
Sure.
Famously, it like you run the Lord on Terrorgeist, you run this Royal Menagerie, you run 2 of the Arch Regents, to summon some bodies. And you're like a 4-drop army, and you can still buy like all of your endless spells. You're like a 4-drop army. that has like 4 huge monsters, and yeah, like that's the famous kind of blister. That's what Ben Johnson won the one event with, right, when this launched.
Sure.
So
yeah, it's the 3 Royal Terrorgeist or Royal Zombie Dragons, not the ones with the dude on top, just the monster.
Right. Yep.
And
Yep.
they heal if they're near each other in the hero phase. So I'm small them out. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Gristlegore obviously gives him double bites on 6s.
You know what
or
I'll say?
double attacks. What?
It's still better than the Stormcast 3 Knights Templar.
Dragon.
Dragon
Yes.
Templar.
Oh God.
Star Grades.
It's so true.
The most depressing of all battalions.
Like you have this battalion at like 1020 or 1060 or something like that. Like it's not expensive to get this in 3 of those, because those Royal Terrorghests are only 300 a pop.
Right.
And they count as battle line in your in that they are your battle line in Gristlegore.
Right. Yeah. Both, either they or the Zombie Dragons are both.
Right. Both of them are. Right.
Yeah. And they don't have the behemoth keyword, notably.
Right.
Which is, pretty good.
It's fun.
Like, I don't know that actually matters. I think most of the versions of this list, you wouldn't have more than 4 of these guys anyways.
Right.
But, like, okay. Like,
it's
if
fun.
you want, sure, you can take 6 big Griblies and have a good time. And that's fine. Like, okay.
Yep.
Cool.
No, I mean, you don't want to do that. You want to get the 2 Archregents so you can summon 40 more bodies.
I understand. I'm saying that, like, you could do these big 6 Griblies and have a good time. If that's your jam, you can be.
I mean,
it can be
it's silly, but sure, whatever.
Sure. As I said, what we should all be excited about for the Gribliathon of all these monsters isn't anything to do with this book. It should be how cool it's going to be for the Beastclaw Raiders when they actually get their new book.
Sure. Oh, poor Beastclaw.
No, that's fine. Look, things are looking good for them, buddy. Like this release and the things you saw in Skaven and the Flesh Eater Courts and some of the rules things we've seen there says Beastclaw Raiders are going to have a great book whenever that comes back out. So there you go. I don't disagree with that. Buy low, sell high, homie. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Sure.
So now's the time. You pick up them mammoths. All right. So we've talked about most of the, like we've sort of, incidentally talked about a lot of the war scrolls, just through our conversation so far. So I don't know if there's anything else we really, really need to cover. Other than we haven't talked about the endless spells, so I want to take a moment to talk about those because those are very important.
Yes, but I do want to talk about something real quick. Sure. A lot of people have made a really big deal about the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist.
Okay.
Sure. And like I like him. I think he's a great piece. I think he's super threatening with that rerollable bite. And even not in Gristlegore, just normally. And,
one other quick thing we should mention: there's an extra benefit to taking a battalion here that's sort of hidden. Yeah. Every battalion not only gives you the extra command point and the extra artifact, like always, and lowers your drops, it also gives you an additional mount trait, right? So if you have multiple big Griblies, you can give each of them a mount trait. So just a relevant point to mention as you're about to pivot into this. Please continue.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, like he has a pretty fantastic spell that basically gives up a 5 upward save to a unit.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, a lot of people, like, he's just a go-to for big Griblies. But I want to point out, and he's like the thing that you're going to like throw into combat and just smash things, right?
He's a beater. Yeah.
No, I want to highlight that the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Zombie Dragon.
Okay.
Nobody's really talking about him. And there's 2 really interesting things that I found about him. One is that the mount trait increases the rend down the line by 1. Which is good. Moves his bite to -3 rend, and fangs to -2.
Okay.
So like that's not a bad effect. It's not mortal wounds, but it's not a bad effect. But I would argue that his like the other summons like 3 horrors or 3 flares, where the zombie dragon one summons a courtier, which lets you pick up the like I would arguably, like in most instances, I would want to summon a courtier. Like I wouldn't want to summon a like a 3-pack of hordes or flares.
Sure.
And so this lets you summon. I would argue his summon is more useful, but nobody's talking about his spell.
The Malefic Hunger.
Yeah,
The bubble reroll wounds.
Yeah, it's a bubble reroll wounds for units wholly within 16 inches. So you can do like multiple units.
Yep.
And it's really easy for like on the hordes to get reroll all hits. It's a lot harder to get reroll wounds. And so suddenly like this piece actually grants both. Because on those like horrors, they need to be near an abhorrent within 18 inches to get the reroll hits. His spell goes off and he gives reroll wounds. So like if he is amidst those groups, they're all rerolling all hits and rerolling all wounds.
Sure. Which admittedly turns those units much scarier, right?
Right.
Because I mean, those guys are normally they make a decent number of attacks. Like let's take your Crypt Horrors because that's an easy example, right? Where they're on like 3 attacks, 4s and 3s.
Right.
You know, but if they didn't, you know, just rolling that straight, they actually, because they have no rend, their damage is actually kind of low, right? Even with their like 6 trigger to go to 3 damage. But when they suddenly have a reroll of all hits and all wounds, I mean, their effective damage just shoots through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And it's the interesting thing about them is that like, as of right now, there's still, and these recent armies have only added to this. The meta is very heavy on like low armor stuff right now.
Right.
It has been for a little while, and it's only gotten worse because like Skaven added hordes of relatively low armor bodies. Gets added hordes of relatively low armor bodies, right? And arguably even the mirror match, you know, it's not. This army isn't known for its saves, right? Like there's a there's a lot of 5-up saves in here. So like you are often overpaying for high rend, where like Crypt Horrors, you know, clearly against things like Night Haunt where they don't even care at all. These guys are just punching ghosts dead all over the place. You know, we've talked about the value of like not paying for rend, quote unquote, right, against things like Night Haunt and stuff like that. So against piles of Grim Gas and things like that, it's pretty useful. So yeah, no, I think that's fair to highlight. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to hold him up against the other guy because that maul with the reroll is just so ungodly scary, right?
Right. Well, he's a great utility piece. So he's a great support Gribbly, right? That can still punch hard. And where the other one is your sacrificial piece that you're going to jam into into a gap and just let him die. But like let him hold and kill things.
Yeah, I mean, my real problem with the two of them is that, like, I don't like that the zombie dragon guy is, I don't want to say significantly more expensive, but he's more expensive.
40 points. Yes.
Yeah, it's 40 points more. And I look at that and I'm like, I don't get it that that's a decision they made. Right? I feel like in the same way that the two monsters alone are the same price, because like both the zombie dragon and terrorgeist are 300 if you take them without the top, right? I feel like these should probably just both be the same price, and that price should probably just be 420 or something, right? Like that's like, and that would probably be an equal choice, because I agree with you. One is just like Mr. Melee Destruction, and one is like this dude's perfectly scary in melee. It's just he has more broad-based utility. So I don't know. Who knows? I mean, look, it could very well happen that when GHB 19 comes out, you know, points move here, right? Like it wouldn't be. We saw points changes some with the with some of the later, you know, some of the armies that were released in the first half of the year last time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it here as well. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's talk about the endless spells, because I want to talk about that, and then we'll call it a day on our Flesh Eater Courts coverage.
Sure.
So basically, they've got 3.
Okay, so hold on. Somebody asked about the reroll maul thing. Yeah. So the Terrorgeist. So anytime you have a hero mounted on a mount, there are mount traits in the book. One of those mount traits that the Terrorgeist mounted Abhorrent Ghoul King can choose is a reroll failed hits on the maul.
Yes.
The maul on a natural 6 does 6 mortal wounds. And so this gives them the ability to more like have more literal bites at the 6 mortal wound apple.
Yep. So this is the specific Terrorgeist mount trait is called Gruesome Bite. As I mentioned last time, notable
it is on
that
page 60.
Yeah, they used the old language of
Right.
you can reroll failed hit rolls, and I'm absolutely positive that was an intentional.
This was an intentional. They didn't want people fishing for more mortals than they deserve.
Right, because otherwise, I'll tell you what I would do. Like if this had the new wording, which is just re-roll hit rolls,
I would always re-roll all hits.
Everything that's not a 6.
It's not a 6.
Yeah, I would
because the payout in Gristlegore, like to put a pin on this, the payout in Gristlegore is actually huge because you're getting a normal hit every time you roll a 6. You're getting a normal hit and you're getting the 6 mortals.
Yes.
And so it was just like the benefit, like the cost benefit analysis. It was just always more beneficial just to have another chance at that natural 6.
Right. So like even if you rolled like in the world where I tossed, let's say I had 5 attacks, which is not uncommon to get out of the maw because you've been, frenzied up or whatever, right? Out of an arch region. In that world where I roll 5 attacks and get like 1 6, 3 4s, and a 1, right? If it didn't say failed hit rolls, I would without hesitation, like especially in Gristlegore, pick up those 3 4s and that 1 and toss them again. Even though those 3 4s were hits, I would just be like, nope, don't care. Boom, roll it again. Like it's worth it, right? Because it's just doing the work.
Because it's 6 mortals and another attack or another wound roll.
Another normal hit roll. Yeah. Yep. So at any rate, that's not the case. You can only reroll faileds. So there you go. Okay. Cool. Endless spells. All right. So
but notably that dragon, the zombie dragon, does not get that reroll. Instead, the zombie dragon can take either Death from the Skies, which will let them like set up off table and drop kind of wherever 9 inches out, or they can pick up the other one that I like is a Razor Claw that increases the rend by 1 on all the mounts. So the bite goes to -3 rend and the claws go to -2.
Yep.
Because it gives you rend in the army where you may not.
After we just talked about how that's not very valuable. Okay, cool.
Right.
All right. Spells. We're doing it, Tom. We're talking about endless spells. Stop trying to fight it. Here we go.
Cool.
All right. There are 3 endless spells. I would argue one of them is the valuable thing. So let's talk about the two that are less valuable first. Okay.
Right.
So Cadaverous Barricade. Okay. So this is the wall. Right.
Right.
All right. So casting value of 5, only Nagash and or Abhorrence can summon it. I love how Nagash gets a free bite at the apple.
Well, not only that, I was going to say like as if he needed more power.
Yeah. I love that he can also take these things or just cast these things. Like what a doofus. All right. Anyways, I can't wait until there's something death oriented that doesn't heed that dude. Anyways. Yeah. If successfully cast, you get to set up the barricade wholly within 24 inches of the caster and 1 inch from enemy units. So quite a healthy range.
Right.
If a model starts a move within 3 inches of this model, you have the distance that model can move when it makes that move. Death units are not affected by this ability. Not just Flesh Eater Courts. Death units. Whoa. And then Grisly Obstacle. When a missile weapon targets a unit that has all of its models within 1 inch of this model, then the target receives the benefit of cover. And if blah, 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 closer, yada, yada, yada. In other words, if you're behind the stupid wall. Okay. So the barricade, barricade's 30 points. It's cheap, right? Okay. It's a wall. Doesn't move. Set it up once. Decent sized model. I don't care. I cannot. I nope. The fact that its death units aren't affected are what makes me say no to this. Right?
It's 30 points.
Yep.
And I can set this up next to I don't know, choose your model. I can set this up next to what's his face? With the Rage Axe. Who never
Scarbrand?
gets Scarbrand, who never gets into combat.
Sure.
And now he's at half movement.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I could shackles him too.
Right.
It's like
yes, and you could do both.
I could, or I could just take shackles and not worry about an endless spell I took not working against like a quarter of the armies in the game.
But is the distribution actually 25% for those 3 armies?
I don't know.
I mean,
man. Death is pretty
yeah.
close. LON
It is,
is
like,
the highest occurring in the meta.
It is. It was 13% at the last event.
Yeah.
But the question is do Night Haunt and Flesh Eater make up the other 12%? And I don't think they do.
I
Like, I don't like.
Who cares? It's going to be close. And especially right now, there's a lot of FEC at events. People are pretty excited about this. It's popping up in some decent numbers. LON still super powerful. Nobody's really answered them yet, right? So I'm feeling like
I don't know.
give this one a pass.
Let's say this. I actually like it because it's a wall. Like, it truly is a wall that doesn't move. And like between this and the prismatic barricade, like if you had both of those, like you could shut down a 16-inch like strip of the table. Because they're like 8 inches long. Or they're an entire sprue length is what they are. And like that's not insignificant is what I would say. Especially for like Daughters of Cain that have to run around that now.
Yeah, okay. Cool, man.
Like
I can just think of so many better ways to spend.
And now they're trying to run around it. They're trying to run around it at half move.
Okay.
So I think it's useful, and I think it has a use. That's what I would say.
I think it'll like shackles,
and it's a 24-inch like cast range.
Yeah, it's got a decent range on it. Cool. That's my answer. I give this a John Oliver rating of cool. All right. Let's talk about the Corpse Mare Stampede. Okay. All right. Corpse Mare Stampede. Cool model. I like this one a lot. Like the model looks super sweet. Like the dead sort of Bretonian style horses. All right. Single model. Predatory. So here we're dealing with the predatory thing where your opponent can gain control of it. Summon Corpse Mare has a casting value of 7. Once again, Nagash or your abhorrence can summon it. You have to set it up wholly within 3d6 inches of the caster. Okay. When you set it up, you can immediately make a move with it. All right. It moves 14 inches and can fly. So, downside, you could roll really crappy and need to set it up right in your own face, right? Upside, it's got some pretty decent movement on it. Like 14 inches is a pretty good move for an endless spell. Okay.
Yep.
Trampled underfoot. After this model is moved, roll 5 dice for each unit that has any models it passed across. For each roll that is more than that unit's wounds characteristic, more than, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. For each roll of a 6, it's D3 mortals. So, if we move it across, like let's take our best case scenario here. You fly this Corpse Mare over top of, like, let's say 2 units, and both are 1 wound models. You roll 5 dice, and every 2+ is a mortal. Every 6 is D3. There you go. And it's predatory, so it can also be turned around on you and stomp your own ghouls into the ground. The horses can run just as wild on you as they can on anybody else. All right.
And at 60 points.
60 points. Yep. Uh-huh.
I haven't included it in a single list yet.
Nope. This one's a pass, folks. This is a pass.
I wanted to. Like, to be clear, like I wanted to. Because I like the potential damage on it.
You know what else does damage? the models in your army that you can just go kill people with that don't turn
Right.
around and kill you.
You know what 60 point? You know what 60 points is?
Halfway to more than halfway to some more ghouls.
Or a little less than a third to another abhor or another archregent.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Now let's talk about the actual good one you're going to take. Okay.
Right. In every list.
This is as close to auto as you can get. Yeah. Unfortunately, I actually hate that that's the case, but it's as close as possible. I don't know that it's actually auto, but oh, nice. As Dan pointed out, the difference between a king and an archregent. That's what that 60 points is. Yes, between a ghoul king and an archregent. Yeah. Okay. The Chalice of Usharan.
Usharan. Yeah, the first ghoul.
Oh, okay. Sure, why not?
Yeah, like that's from Warhammer Fantasy Battles lore.
Neat. All right.
I think no, I'm sorry. No, not the first ghoul. He was the first vampire, like one cursed guy. I think that's who he was. Yeah.
I don't know. Why not? So, anyways, that dude's cup. So,
Yep.
casting value of 6. Again, Nagash.
Yep.
Nagash or Naboran can cast it, and you can set it up wholly within 24 of the caster. All right. And it doesn't move once it's set up. It's just out there. This cup is just out there. Here we go. This is going to be a little tricky to explain, so let's walk through it. Keep track of the number of models.
I'm sorry.
Models.
He was the Usharan was the younger brother of Neferata.
Oh, neat. That's kind of cool. There you go. All right.
The Lord of Masks, Celebrations, and Festivities.
Neat. All right.
And he became the first Strigioi.
I'm going to stab you in the face. I swear to God. I'm trying to explain a complex thing, and you keep busting in with your tomfoolery. All right. So here we go.
8th edition lore. Woo!
Mm-hmm. See, I just waited there because I knew you were going to do it again. Here we go. Keep track of the number of models that are slain within 12 inches of this model each turn. At the end of each turn, roll a die for each model that was slain within 12 inches of this model during that turn. For each 4+, heal 1 wound allocated to 1 Flesh Eater Quartz model within 12 inches of the cup. Or return 1 slain model to 1 Flesh Eater Quartz unit that has a wounds characteristic of 1 that is wholly within 12 inches of this model. So you can throw this cup across the board, plow into something like with your Lord on Terrorgeist or whatever, or your double pack or whatever. And even if they manage to get wounds on you, all the dead body pile becomes a big pile that gets rolled, and every
healing.
4+ heals them a wound. Yes.
Yep. And this could be on your general. This could be to return a bunch of bodies of ghouls that you've lost. I mean, it's just sexy. It's just so good.
And notably, the important part here is this thing is 40 points, right? Now, the challenge is, once you put it out there, it's out there, right? So if the sort of fight moves away from the cup, you've got to dispel your own cup and then put it somewhere, put it back.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. Sure. And I love this cup because the abattoir, you're eating them and they're just replenishing your models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should. That's a good note. It doesn't say slain in any particular way.
No.
Right. So if stuff dies to the abattoir, mortal wound, packing and cracking, right, as it were.
Yep.
Then, hey, that's just more blood in the cup, baby. So the chalice is sexy as all get out. It can be a little tough to actually return ghouls because the whole ghoul unit has to be within 12.
Yep.
So
that's why you leave a little 40 mil hole in the middle of your giant ghoul units, and you just drop your cup in there.
Sure. Or you make sure that when you pull casualties, that's another good way to do it, right? When you pull casualties, if you had to pile in outside of the 12-inch range, you pull casualties off the edge so that the unit collapses back into within. you know, wholly within 12, right? So, okay, cool. Yeah. The Chalice is stupid good. So
yeah, it's like, yeah, and it's basically been in every list that I've written.
Yeah, it's super solid. There's no doubt about it. It's also a super like awesome model. It's really cool looking. So there you go. Actually, like more or less all their endless spells look really good. So
yeah,
there you go.
Like I want like, so I have like this is inevitably this was going to come up about me not starting an army, and the fact is that I am.
You're building a Flesh Eater Quartz army. You've been hitting me up for bits. Yes, this is all true.
Yeah, like I have started a new army. I'll just own that. And because like I'm gonna probably do this for my like to team up with so Vince is doing Slanesh for our Havoc thing, and he's been locked in on his Slanesh idea forever of like a fallen city, right? Like that's what you're wanting to do, like a fallen corrupted city that Slanesh is basically overrun and taken over.
Well, I should state in an awesome party. Like that's how we took it over. Like lots of chaos takes over cities, but it's normally really sucky, right? Like because
this party's really sucky. Like
Khorne just murders everybody. Nurgle shows up and spreads horrible disease. I don't even know what Tzeentch does. Probably execute some long-term plan that goes nowhere, apocalypse style. Normal Tzeentch, like, oh, it was all part of the plan. My failure was part of a greater meta gambit. Okay, sure. Shut up. Shut up, bird. Stupid bird. However, Slanesh, when they take over a city, they do it through the most awesome party you've ever been at. Like, look, yeah, you probably died in like some excruciating way at the end, but up to that point, it was a pretty great party.
Every minute.
Yeah. It was a great party.
And so, and actually, like, if you'll remember, before the Gloomspite came out, we were like trying to figure out what I was going to run with you. Do you remember this conversation? Like, I pitched Flesh the Ghouls, and I was like, yeah. And then Vince, you're like, I hate those models, and we, you know, like, and we just moved on. And I scrapped that, and I was like, I guess I'll do like goblins, and I'll do squigs, and like voracious appetites, and all that. And then this came back around, and I was kind of looking at this, and Carrion Empire was a good deal, and we got to talking about it. And then I realized that, or, you know, Vince, you pointed out that, like, there's a natural narrative arc here.
Sure.
Because Carrion Empire, like, they're about eating things. Like, the consumption of, like, flesh.
The feast, yes.
The feast, right. It's about the feast. And so indeed, like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do the remnants of the citizens. So not the Slaneshi invaders that have taken over, but the remnants of the city itself that is basically turned to consuming itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we had such a wild party, we turned everybody into cannibals. It's a cannibal corpse-a-thon. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, it's great.
And I've always wanted to do a Bretonnian army. So.
Look, any party that ends in cannibalism is a pretty great party to remember. That's all I'm saying. So there you go. That's one for the books right there. So yeah, I'm sure I'll have to dig through Bretonnian bits and make sure they come to Adepticon with me so I can give them to Tom. That's fine.
Yeah. This is gonna, like, to be clear, I am making a Bretonnian army.
I understand. We get it. That's
yes.
Yep, and there is a very good story here. I know exactly how I want the board to look. I think this is actually a really good alignment, and obviously you and I can work out the narrative a little more. But I love the idea of literally that. Like we showed up, Slanesh's cult infected this city so greatly that they had a party because I didn't want to have one of the things I was going to do on my board. Now I talked about this with you before you had this idea. That I didn't want to have any actual citizens left. Right. I didn't want I wanted there to be like odd bloodstains and like signs of like chains and torture and like weird things that were all creepy, but like I wanted the city to be empty of actual people. Right.
Like you didn't want like bodies on the actual board.
Right, exactly. But because I thought it's so much weirder if you just have all the signs of what happened, but none of the actual people. You're like, where are all the bodies? Like, because you can see all
the answer is that guess what? I ate them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then it's so much cooler if they all turned to cannibalism and like half the city ate the other half. That's where they are now, buddy. So I love that idea. I think that that's super fun. So yeah, it'll be a good army.
Yeah. So yeah, so I didn't want to do it, and then when I realized I could do this and also build it as a Bretonian empire, like wait till you see my keyworded knight horrors.
Sure.
Because they have the night keyword.
Yeah, I get it. I know. I'm excited for it. And yeah, again, it's good because it aligns well since that's sort of the aesthetic of the city that I was building anyways for like a fallen city. It feels like, one like a Bretonian style city is what I was already building. So yep.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yep. All right. So Tom, any final thoughts before we close out for the day? For the night?
I like the FEC release. I actually liked it better than Skaven. And the reason why I say that is because it is overwhelmingly powerful in like 2 phases of the game.
Sure.
But it's lacking in those other phases. Like it's not and so like it has some things there, but like not real things. There's no ranged attacks.
Right.
We
understand there are, but they're not. Yeah.
And there's magic, but like in general, that's not good magic, especially in the new world of like supercasters and in the new world of like auto dispelling and corn eating people's spells and all that. Like, so they have magic, but who knows how much they're going to actually get to capitalize on it.
Sure.
They're good at moving and they're good at punching people in the face.
Yep.
And so I love books that are like there's a kind of a counterbalance to them. The same cannot be said of like Skaven, which just seems to do everything.
Sure. Yeah, you're darn right they do. You're damn right. All right. So, anyways, yeah, I like the rats better, obviously, but
Right.
We should do everything. We are better than everybody else. We are the under empire. So, but no, I mean, like, other than I've stated my one problem I have with the book, and it's just sort of the nature of how Gristlegore works, not in an OP sense, and that it will give people some bad game sense, and the people who it'll give bad games to are the people
you don't want to give bad games to.
You don't want to give bad games to. It's the people with the least amount of knowledge are the most likely to get kicked in the teeth by this thing, right? Because they don't know how to counter that kind of play. Now, that being said, I actually think the rest of the book's incredibly compelling. I think it's mostly fair. Summoning's mostly in check. I think it's a good army or a good book with a lot of different interesting options. Once we all together recognize that that problem, which I am admitting is a glaring problem, but let's set that to the side for a moment. And I'll when I look at the rest of the book, I'm actually really happy with it. I think it's got a lot of fun stuff in it. So
you're saying there you go. People ignore Gristlegore?
If we set the Gristlegore problem aside, which I am openly admitting is a problem, right?
Well, here's the deal. I think it's going to self-correct. Honestly, because what's going to happen is that the meta is going to continue to move.
Again, that's not the problem. The problem isn't the meta, Tom. Again, you're thinking too much like in tournament talk. Who cares? I don't care about the meta with Gristlegore.
No, but these lists are going to naturally disappear because they are not going to be viable.
They won't. Again, this isn't 5-game tournament crap I'm talking about. Okay, sure. Yeah, people won't play Gristlegore at tournaments because it can't win. I agree. Neat. Cool that doesn't happen.
You're just saying at the local store.
Yeah. You're going to roll down to your local store as a new player, just doing a pickup game, and you're going to get smashed off the table at the top of one and be like, oh, I guess that's how this game plays. Okay, cool. I must have a bad army. I'm going to go home now.
Right.
That's a real crap experience. Most players that we're talking about don't go to tournaments.
Right.
The people most susceptible to bad games are in the environment that doesn't self-correct. Okay? Right. Yes, tournament metas self-correct. Sure. Because tricks like this get beaten and then those lists stop getting taken and we can all move on with our lives. Okay? Right. That's not what I'm concerned with. Right? And that's because the vast majority of the games being played in the world aren't tournament games. All right? And that's exactly the scene that doesn't self-correct. So
Right.
anyway, that's that again. But setting that admittedly difficulty, like I'm not trying to undercut it. I'm just saying I'm just putting it in a box, writing problem on the box, and setting the box aside, and saying I think there's a lot of good stuff in this book, and that I think ultimately that could be corrected in some way. So whatever, like hopefully that'll happen. There's always time to things can always be fixed. Whatevs. So there you go. Hopefully people, hopefully as many people as possible, like see the various people who've talked about how to beat it and understand it, and it becomes a known thing, and so less people have bad games. That's all I can hope for. There you go. Because I think there is lots of good, competitive, fun stuff going on here. So that aren't that.
Right.
There you go. Yep. All right, cool. Well, with that, we'll call it a night. Next week, I may actually be back at home. How about that? Maybe. We'll see. And
the week after that
is Adepticon, which I'll be on the road again. Tom and I will both be on the road.
Well, that'll be an extra special show because we'll do that show is our after show for the Adepticon reveal.
Yep, it'll be the after show. So,
I think that was like one of our biggest shows last year too.
It's going to be an awesome time. So at any rate, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for walking through this grand delusion with us. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.